Hello and welcome to the program and our coverage of the 2019 Make Smoking History Targa Southwest. A great event. Glenn, thanks for joining us, especially after straight out of the hot seat and onto this seat. You obviously had a great ride on the weekend as well.
Yeah, it was great to to be partnering John O'Dowd, and the first time a Skoda R5 has been on the stages in Australia, on tarmac stages, should I say. And Race Talk have done a great job in getting that car ready. Not quite in tarmac trim, but it was in a super good way ready for the tarmac there.
Made it look the business on the road from where we were standing, and I reckon from the onboard it felt the business in the silly seat.
Oh, look, I mean, difficult conditions to start with, and John certainly got the hang of the car by the end of the weekend. Several faster stage times, did a superb job.
Mate, this particular event, it's its 10th anniversary. Fantastic and really famous for the diversity of the cars that it has. When you start talking about the field, great range of cars. As I said, two Mustangs, Paul Crude and Kim Stewart, great competitors, always out there. 65 tribute cars, a GT Fastback for Kim and Paul in the coupe. Fantastic cars, 347 and 360s, 3 cubic inch strokers in both those machines, always crowd favourites. And then, of course, the general well represented, the big black Camaro, Greg Freeman and Wayne Turner on board. Big horsepower again from this car. It dropped off the radar, that car. It was built a few years ago. Really beautiful job built. Back in circulation now. Really happy to see that on board.
And another great car out there on the weekend, Tim Wolfe in the Carrera RS, K-Tech built car. As you know, those things they're great cars, great for tarmac rallying. Talking about noise, the noise obviously the V8 Taranas, always a crowd pleaser. Plenty of rear-wheel drive, sideways action. We've even got a Lancia Delta in the field, and then you go the opposite end of the spectrum. No noise, 2 electric cars. How good is that? We've got a Proton Jumbuck, which you know a little bit more about than me, but I mean I saw that car go on Friday at the shakedown, and it was like there's no noise, there's nothing, and super quick.
They've done a fabulous job of putting that thing together, and of course perhaps the opposite to where that was built, the Tesla was also there, and the Lundsman did a great job of that car, and some of the stage times unbelievable.
He was up there, and obviously on the podium early on. I mean, and that's obviously the future of our sport. One day it's obviously electric cars, and there's certainly plenty of power with those things.
10 years in the making, some pretty challenging stages.
Oh, absolutely. They have a great mixture. I mean, you're talking about the diversity of cars. The diversity of stages is also very impressive. We have the super quick stages on the main road from Pemberton to Northcliffe. Average speed something like 160 kilometres an hour, and then you have the town stages where the average speed's under 100. But they're still great stages. They're actually, there's a bit of fast, there's a bit of tight stuff up over crests and stuff like that. And it's great to actually be able to take the sport back to the people in the town. And it's actually there's some really good stages in this event.
Yeah, in particular the Manjum up stage, the town stage, really looks good to me. And when you watch enough on board, and of course you were in the car, some sweeping stages, corners as well as hairpins, as well as a couple of corners that you can link together. So traditionally you think about a town stage doesn't quite suit us rally guys, but that one certainly does. And conversely, the Pemberton stage a bit tighter. Plenty of bumps there, and lots of concentration required.
Yeah, like as you say, I think when you talk about driving around the streets and you're sort of thinking there's going to be square corners and things like that. Like it's far from it. They've picked some really good bits of road, linked them together well, and it's created some great competition. It was actually from the hot seat. It was great fun.
Made in this particular event 2 categories, main categories, modern and classic, and of course also added to this event 3 extra categories: touring, 130 class and 165 class, obviously denoting the top speed that those 2 categories, 130 and 165, could do. So a good range for everybody to play in.
Absolutely. I mean, what a great way to get people involved in the sport. Depending if you don't have a roll cage, don't have the safety equipment, you can still be out there. You go in the tour, you're still going quite quickly down the road. It's all controlled. The organisers obviously place a lead car and keep everybody bunched together, but you get to experience closed roads, in a safe environment.
Use both lanes.
Yeah, exactly. You can use both lanes. No indicators required. And then like you say, like the 130 class, absolutely, it's a great way to get involved. You can't do any more than 130 kilometres an hour, but you're still, like you say, using both lanes, doing racing lines on some closed roads. Great way to get involved.
Well, in the town stages, you struggle to get above 130. There is a couple of places you can. So you can be as competitive as the full-blown competition class. Well, let's get started, Glenn. Saturday, weather-wise, pretty average. Talk to us about how many stages and how much competitive.
Yeah, we had 107 kilometres on the first day, 15 stages. Obviously, early dramas in the day, very, very tricky conditions. I know sitting on the start line, I think John was probably a little bit nervous, obviously, going into that first corner, and unfortunately, we've come around the second corner and there's already a car off, and it was quite a fairly major accident there. He's had a bit of an issue and obviously hit the tree quite hard and ended up on its side in the ditch, which wasn't nice to see.
No, a fair bit of damage to the car, a little bit of damage to body and soul. The boys were airlifted away, but great to say that both of them doing very well. Will be shaken up for some time, and there is a little bit of damage that they need to sort out, but all good as far as that they will make repairs both to body and mind.
Yeah.
The car probably a bit second hand, not sure how much repair work's going to get done on that. That caused the rest of those stages, because there was supposed to be 4 runs, two in both directions on the dam stage, but the field was taken back and then headed out to the Pemberton Northcliffe. Not a very good way to warm up on your very first stage. Talk us through it.
Not really. I mean, it's 15k. I think to have that first 4k stage, that was probably the good way to get into it. You sort of get your mind around things and get into the swing of things, and you test the grip levels. But then 15k straight into it. Pemberton Northcliffe, averaging 160 kilometres an hour. That is super challenging, especially with the conditions. Like it was wet on the first pass. Probably the second pass when we did the return journey, it was still damp, but still super tricky.
Talking about that second pass, Will White was quick off the mark. We can see here by the onboard, he had a big moment here. I think Bernie, the co-driver, explained it as dinner plates.
Oh, yes.
And at that sort of speed, I mean, you can tell me now that the speed that they would have been doing to actually have to put some opposite lock in, not that good.
No, Bernie described that to me. I think we had the breakdown in Northcliffe, and he was we sort of said, "How'd you go, Bernie?" and he was like, they'd won the first 2 stages, but on the third one they were a little bit more circumspect and reduced the speed a little bit, because they had the big moment in stage 2. Super tricky, as you can see from the onboard, and a little bit lucky to get away with it probably.
And Glenn, as well as having a moment on that stage, the dramas continued for Will White and his co-driver Bernie Webb. First of all, engine problems. They had to change a spark plug in the Northcliffe swap over area, or the assembly area, which is never a good sign. So obviously some damage in there to start with. But worse than that, he was going to cop a fair few penalties, because in this particular event, as we know, 200 kilometres per hour is the maximum speed allowed, and they breached that on a couple of occasions and were penalised quite heavily.
Yeah. There was, like I say, there was some conjecture over that, because the car was tuned to do 200 kilometres an hour basically, and they believed that that's what obviously that they were doing 200, but the rally safety that we have in all the cars has actually logged that they're actually over that speed limit. So there's a penalty for the amount of seconds that you go over the speed limit. There's a penalty based on the time that you spent going over the limit, and they got something like 40 seconds worth of penalties on those 4 runs at that stage, which even though that obviously they've been fastest, it dropped them back to second and put Mark Greenham up into first. Yeah,
hero to zero pretty quickly, and I don't mean that lightly. Got big heroes for everybody that challenged that stage at that speeds in those conditions. Unfortunately for the boys, they're going to cop the penalty. Mark Greenham, great job. He and co-driver Steph, fantastic job across those 4 stages. Obviously everybody testing the mark, and he did a pretty good job.
He certainly did. He was very clean. No penalties at all. Just obviously in overall stage times, just off the win in the first 2, and then I think the third and the fourth stages. So the second pass of those 2 stages, he was fastest, and great job.
And the GDR of Mark Cates, another competitor that did very well. We can't stress enough how challenging the conditions were. You're going to tell us shortly about sitting in the Skoda R5, but Mark Cates did a great job, and so did David Heaton.
Yeah, David Heaton did a great job as well in the Focus RS, and like we discussed at the start of this, great to see such a diverse range of cars actually in the field, and all fairly close.
Hellier was 5th in the Evo, good job, and of course you and Johnny 6th. A lot of hard work, and that poor little thing running out of puff pretty quick.
Yeah, 1600cc, 32mm restrictor. You know, it's not really what the car's designed for, to be running at sort of 160 kilometres an hour average. And to be fair to John, it probably wasn't the best way for him to
Debut.
to test that car out in tarmac. It was. Yeah, a lot of risk for little reward, I think. And, as the day went on, he did a superb job in getting quicker and quicker. But those first 4 stages were about being clean and getting to the end. And, he was passing cars in the stages as well. So, quite interesting.
Mick Steele, unfortunately, his new machine that he hasn't had out for very long, did a good job, but diff problems would hamper him pretty well from the start. And in fact, he wouldn't make it past day 1, unfortunately.
No, there was obviously some boost issues there as well as the day went on. He had some good stage times though, so there's plenty of promise in that car. And Mick's obviously driving it well, and I know he was just in front of us, and he was passing cars on the stages as well. So I think having a bit of a drag race with the Jag there at a few times, because obviously start the stage with 30-second intervals.
Yeah.
And catching cars in front.
And Glenn, the Classic boys, really good over those first 4 stages, challenging conditions as we said. No high-tech aids on board the car like traction control or ABS.
No four-wheel drive.
No four-wheel drive. They had to do it all on their lonesome and did a good job. Tim Wolf in the, as we said, in the KTEC built Porsche, great job. Eased into it, no mistakes, and a good morning.
Tim did a great job across those 4 stages. Had something like a minute 14 lead, and then next was the 2 Mustangs, Kim Stewart in the fastback, and then third was Paul Crute. And in the 130 class, we had Steve James leading the way in the WRX. Although there was a lot of penalties on board there. Obviously couldn't, the big wide roads, super quick, and their regulations obviously only 130 kilometres an hour limit. And unfortunately, he's exceeded that quite a lot. So even though he was fastest over those stages, he was actually something down, I think, in 5th place. So Steve a little bit too eager, perhaps. Maybe next year he might actually want to enter the main class. But no, he was doing
hard work, Glenn. Hard work in a standard car to stay under 130 on a big highway with that. You haven't got any high tech aids on board the car to tell you. You and your co-driver really got to have the wits about you.
And Steve Turpin was doing a great job in the R8 Commodore, super quick across the stages. And also Jeff Foster was another doing a super job as well in the Porsche. So once again, great diversity of cars.
150, flat 9 left, this is flat, 70, 9 right, tightens 8.
So Glenn, after lunch, a quick blast down the Diamond Tree stage?
Yeah, which is the only stage we'd only do once in the rally, so it was a fairly quick stage, 1 virtual chicane. But yeah, very quick, and then obviously onto Manjimup, and we did the Kurandra stage and the town stage 3 times.
What I reckon it must be challenging for the teams, and I'm sure it is challenging, is going from the town stage, which, as you said, what did you say?
It's like
average speed?
Yeah, about around 90.
Yep,
90 something.
And then out to the other stage, super quick. Hardly, I think you said to me, no need to touch the brakes really anywhere. Big fast stage.
Yeah, and in the Kurandra stage, basically I think the last K and a bit of that, well, probably a K and a half. It's you not really need to use the brakes. And I think I said that to Johnny even on the in car there in the Skoda. It's like he's pretty much flat to the finish. I was actually thinking about tightening the belts a couple of times because he did take me literally. So, but yeah, it's very very quick in parts there. And I think the mixer stages is what makes a good rally. Yeah, that's what makes it
100%.
challenging, and that's what as drivers, that's what you want to do. You want the challenge. Yeah. And I think it's a really good mix of roads.
And I think the teams did well. I know for a fact that the spectators loved it. We were very close to the spectator point. Really very interesting. Again, unfortunately, using that same terminology yet again, but the diversity, the crowd just loved to see the different cars, modern, classic, 2-wheel, 4-wheel. Front-wheel drive as well, and of course electric. So, yeah, they certainly got bang for their buck when they come to this stage. And if we can start off now with the teams themselves, very competitive. Like there wasn't any hanging around.
No, and I think across the afternoon, I think the most that the gap on any stage between white and green was 3 seconds. So all afternoon it was on. They were both going hammer and tong, both doing a superb job, and the guys behind weren't far behind either. But those two, class above, and yeah, going super quick.
You guys did a great job, Johnny O'Dowd, getting more and more the hang of the the car, and we have to remember that it's the first time on tarmac for him with that car, so that's pretty good. David Heaton in the Focus, probably not the happiest he's ever been in a rally car in that particular car. I don't think I'm telling any stories out of school. He's not the happiest in that car, but they're pushing it further and further, and he did a good job, and again, enjoyed it.
He did indeed, and I think that car seems to lose a little bit of speed around the town stage. When it's a bit tighter and twistier, he seems to lose, relatively speaking, a little bit of time. Well, out on the stages, he was really quick, and you know, he was mixing it up there in the sort of the podium places. So there's obviously that car's obviously not quite suited to the town stages, a bit more tight and twisty. But as you say, John O'Dowd did a superb job, and I think he surprised a few people with winning the last two town stages, equal with Mark Greenham on the second last one, and then fastest on his own in the last one.
Fabulous job. Just getting back to the Focus, I think the boys are worried about the turbocharger that they have on that car to actually make the thing get up and boogie is really not that good down low. So as you say, town stages suffer a bit. Mick Steele, unfortunately for him, his day got worse. More dramas with that car. Boost problems, I think, and that's about his rally done, I reckon.
Yeah, it was, unfortunately. He thought a couple of times that he might have fixed it. He had a few dramas. He was actually the car directly in front of us. At one point he said, no, we're not going, that's it, we're going to pull out. Then the service crew fixed it for him, back out there for the last two. But in the end he said, look, there was no point in, they thought they may damage something, so they thought it's better to go home, get it fixed and bring it back for the next one.
Yeah, when we talk about the results, Glenn, a really good job. At the end of day one, Greenham from White would have been really close without those penalties, but could have been 3 Fs and we would have won the Monte Carlo. So
yes.
That's just the way it goes. Kate's great job in the GDR, always there. It's a good car for those kind of events. Some would say, it's not suited, it's too big and heavy, but that's got some massive horsepower, and he did a really good job to punt that thing around for the day. David Heaton, again, as we've just said, problems with that car, probably not suited, but a good job in 5th. Dennis Hellick, also in the Evo, quietly achieving it throughout the day, no mistakes, did a good job, and of course you and Johnny. Pretty happy with that, I reckon.
I think John was certainly very happy. He'd made progress, and that was what the idea was, obviously, to learn the car and to keep improving.
Mate, the Classic, also the boys in the Classic, great job. The Porsche, fantastic around those town stages, and as it happens, pretty good on the long fast stuff as well. And he basically ran away. I don't think he lost a stage all day. I think he won every single stage. So that's pretty impressive. And I think Kim Stewart, obviously, in the crowd favourite in the Mustang. A beautiful job. And then Miles and Miles, the gravel man out there on the tarmac, husband and wife doing a super job in the Commodore in 3rd. We are missing, of course, Paul Crute, who had that problem in Diamond Tree, damaged a suspension link in the back, and unfortunately couldn't continue, or didn't want to continue to do any more damage. And Glenn, the Camaro of Freeman and Turner, good job all day. Again, we've spoken about how trying the conditions were. It dried out a little bit later in the day, which helped. Big car, mobs of horsepower, very specky, and a good job. And Glenn, the 130 class, pretty good battles up and down the list for these guys.
Yeah, it certainly was. As we discussed before, very difficult to stay under that 130 sometimes, always watching the speedo and making sure they're staying under the 130. But yeah, they were super close. I think Jeff Foster in the Porsche, he started to reel in the R8 of Steve Turpin.
Great little battle, those two guys.
Oh, yeah, exactly, absolutely. And I think on stage 12 it was, the lead changed hands. Jeff got in front and then basically never relinquished the lead again. So I think Steve was probably a little bit too quick on a few stages and copped a few penalties. But yeah.
Easy to do.
Oh, very, 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 very easy to do.
At least the town stage might have been a little easier for them. Not too many times where you had to keep concentrating on the 130. But, of course, there's some long straights in there as well.
It certainly is. But yeah, like you say, great battle. And the WRX of Steve James also in the fight, always, those three never really seem to be separated by much more than a few seconds.
Yeah, as we've said, some beautiful colour up and down that list. Brandt in the RX-7, beautiful car, super well presented. I had a bit of a chat with them, and they've done some really cool mods to that car. Converted it to a single turbo from the twin turbo that it comes out. Beautiful job. Bit of pedigree, that car. Been on fire before, they tell me. So they were pretty happy that it wasn't on fire this particular weekend. And of course, as I say, great competition up and down that, and tip my hat to those guys and girls, because they did a pretty good job to get through a pretty treacherous day one. Then finally the 165 car class. Leo Eriks on board the WRX, not troubled by any competition,
No.
but of course he had to get to the end of it. Doesn't matter that there wasn't anybody else in the class. Tricky conditions for he as well. He and co-driver Paul Vandermeer, great job throughout the day and brought the thing into back to the service at Pemberton, ready for day 2. Well, Glenn, apart from some fog early in the morning, which is not really that unusual for Pemberton, the day 2 started much better for the teams. Dry conditions by about 8:30, 9 o'clock, the sun was out. Everybody was pretty happy, although still talking about penalties.
They were indeed. There was some conjecture about the penalties. Obviously, Will White had 40 seconds of penalties, or just over 40 seconds of penalties on day 1, and I think the lead was something like about 37. So Mark Greenham had been driving within himself in some regards. You know, he knew what the penalties were, and he was driving to maintain a lead.
Yep.
But Sunday morning, there was still conjecture over whether the penalties were correct, because I think from Will White's side, they looked at their data and they believed they hadn't actually exceeded the 200 km/h speed limit. But in the end, it was decided rally safe. Obviously, in the regulations, that's what we go by.
Yep.
It had recorded GPS-wise that his speed was in excess of 200, and so the penalties did stand.
That, of course, was only the start of their woes, because as they fired the car up, we did talk about the issue that they had with the spark plug on day 1. They've obviously done much more damage to the number 4 cylinder, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, plenty of blue smoke.
Yeah, ring damage, and we can see some vision that we've got here of him on the stage. It was just billowing out of the back of the car.
Yeah.
He was telling me not so much down on horsepower, but obviously they were concerned that it might create some other dramas. They had to get on with the job and make sure that if there was any chance that they could catch him, Mark, that they would do.
Yeah, exactly. They had to keep the pressure on. And so, 7 stages for Sunday, 4 runs around the town stage in Pemberton, which is, once again, we've talked about the diversified stages in this event, and it was great to have a town stage. Lots of effort by the organisers to go to put on the stage, and then we had the Pump Hill stage as well, which was run 3 times. So 20 something kilometres, 22 I think it was kilometres across 7 stages. Great way to finish the event.
And Glenn, for Mark Greenham out front, he wasn't going to take any risks, went out pretty hard and actually won the stages.
Yeah, like 2 stage wins, which was very impressive. But then drama on the second running of the Pemberton stage, the 3rd stage for the morning. Bit of drama, as we can see from the onboard vision. He's gone over a bump, and I think it's the right front suspension's actually failed.
And you can hear it quite clearly.
Brown and 3 left don't cut.
Basically, he's basically lost ride height on the right front, so it actually hasn't broken, not completely anyway. And he was a bit nervous there at the end of the stage, whether he'd be able to continue. But they had a quick check, and a bit of advice from the race talk team, and they were like, "No, it'll be fine. It won't break on you." Into the next stage, and he wins the next stage. It's like there's a pretty good performance, given the issues he's got.
Yeah, he didn't take any chances, basically, is what we're saying. He made sure of the win, continued on, come back down to the town stage, completed that and a couple of more runs, and did a really good job.
Oh, he did a super job. And also what was great about Sunday was it was also close. You had 4 different types of cars. You had Will White in the Evo 9, Mark Cates in the GTR, John O'Dowd in the R5, and Heaton in the Focus. They're all doing exactly the same stage times. It was very, very close across the top. It's
phenomenal.
It's great. It's great for the sport to see so many different types of cars and so many different drivers all equal fastest on stage.
I think what we'll do now is get you to take us for a tour of the stage. You and Johnny on board. Talk us through it.
4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, here we go in the R5, obviously into the stage. And the big thing with the R5 car is to be quite aggressive on the brakes to get the thing to really, really turn, as you can see here. John's doing a great job of getting the car turned in.
The stop sign. 100.
You really have to be quite patient in getting the car turned in, so you can get back on the power as early as possible, which he's really doing a really good job.
Then 50 to turn left 3 in. T right 3, 50 to turn left 3 in. 70.
As we come down here, the next left, you obviously turn into a bit of a narrower street. You get in there nice and early and drive it out on the throttle.
20 left 4 minus, don't cut. Smooth.
Come down here, it's the only corner that seems to have a bit of new tarmac, and you'll see the car squirm a little bit as it changes from the old tarmac to the new stuff. Just loses a little bit of grip as it goes in there.
250.
This next part of the stage just here is pretty quick, and it's probably the favourite part of the stage. You come up over this crest, it's blind. You've got about 100 metres after this corner to where you need to brake, and you go over that corner very hard, and especially in this car with its big advantage is under brakes. You want to do the braking as late as possible, keep the weight down on the nose and get it turned in.
100. Small brown and
I think this part of the stage, I realise John's doing a pretty good job, and just egging him on a little bit probably, and just to stay up it and to really drive this car aggressively.
70.
It's one of those cars that seem to, the more aggressive you are with it, the more the more it gives you.
120. T left 3 in.
A little bit of a sideways on the exit there, nice and nearly on the throttle.
70. Turn left 3 in and don't cut. 120.
And as we come up here, down the last straight here, into the final right, the organisers had actually said I think the poor old Lancia had dropped its oil and or the water there, and so it was a little bit more slippery there. And over the finish, great job by Johnny.
Yeah, mate, great job for both of you guys there. It's really cool to see that car being pushed hard over the stage. You must be pretty pleased with the work you've done together with John.
I think that was a stage record as well. So, you know, I mean, all credit to John. I mean, it is a great car, and, you know, it doesn't have the power of some other cars in the event, and it is a really, really efficient car. But as I was saying to him, you still have to drive it, and credit to John because he did a superb job.
Mate, in this particular event, there's a tour, and you can see that the Mercedes doing a great job, having a heap of fun using every bit of the road. What a great way to, if you're a bit of an enthusiast and you've got a sporty type car, what a great way to have a crack. Very cost effective, safe, roads closed. They had a brilliant day.
Oh, it's the best way to get into the sport, even if you don't want to go any further, even if you just want to go out there and actually, you know, legally actually enjoy what your car's capable of doing. You know, Targa West in a couple of months now. Obviously the same categories there. It's a great way to get involved.
And Glenn, the 130 category, again, had a fantastic day on especially on the town stage, because it's a little more difficult to exceed the 130 kilometre an hour top speed. Of course, there is a couple of places. They had to be very careful coming off that stage and then get back onto the pump hill where you can easily go over 130 k's. What a fantastic job they did, and a great battle up and down that list.
Yeah, once again, you know, the WRX, the Holden R8 and the Porsche, all so close. And then to see to Brandt and the RX-7, like he was 1 second off fastest time in stage 21. So super job by all of them.
Yeah, here's the results of that class for the end of the event. Fantastic job done by all. Fortunately, like we said, the weather played a little better hand midway through day one, and then all the way through that day and into Sunday. Makes it much more pleasant, and of course they all handled themselves well, nice and neat, no major issues, no big crashes, so that was a good thing for that class. One of the town favourites and a local guy, Al Blakers, in the A9X Tarana. What a beautiful job. He always comes out, always keen to show the fans what that car's worth. He smile from ear to ear. Bloody great job.
Oh, it's great to see. I mean, the Tarana, obviously, a lot of noise, sideways, beautiful.
Glenn, in the classics, another great job on Sunday by Timmy Wolf. Fantastic effort in the K-Tech built Porsche. No mistakes whatsoever. Great drive throughout the stages. If I'm not mistaken, won every stage.
That's a pretty impressive effort, isn't it? No matter the rally, no matter the field, like that's an impressive effort. To have that kind of consistent performance, you know, consistently fast over the whole weekend, that's a really good job.
Second, Kim Stewart in the GT350, beautiful car, as we've mentioned plenty of times, and great competitor. You know, you always see him out there. He's a long-time player in Targa West and all our Targa events. We're doing the Bunbury Sprint. The boys telling me he and Paul are heading down to Albany to do the Albany around the houses, which would be fantastic. And why? Because they just want to have fun.
They love it. Yeah.
Grab the wives, go down there, have a great weekend. So, you know, fantastic competitors, but not just out there having fun. They're actually super competitive. They want to go out there and win, and they push their cars pretty hard. We see some of the onboard camera here from Kim. They're not mucking around. They're having a good crack.
And then the husband and wife team, the Miles team, obviously in third there in the Commodore. Obviously normally more at home on the gravel, but yeah, super job to take the last spot on the podium.
Yeah, pretty good job to switch from one to the other. And of course the winner, Tim Wolf, very, very pleased.
Look, we were consistent all weekend. Obviously yesterday the conditions were variable, and we just stuck to our plan. And then today we sort of just again had a plan just to try and not overdrive and not get too carried away, and just try and hold it where we were. And I think. We dropped one stage by a second, and we were equal on another one. Besides that, we were ahead on all the others, so we're pretty happy, mate. Yeah, and Richard, my co-driver, Richard Harbron, just impeccable all weekend. He was sensational, mate. Yeah.
So Glenn, as we said, 7 stages across the day for the modern category. A great day's racing. Some of them going really hard. You can see from our vision here, leaning on their cars, doing a good job. And times super close across all those 7 stages.
Yeah, it was great to see. I mean, that Pump Hill stage, obviously we're timing to the 2nd, not to the 10th. But yeah, and so several cars sharing stage wins on numerous occasions. John did a superb job. I think he won 5 stages across the day. He shared a couple of them, but on the town stage, super quick. And I think he broke the stage record, which was impressive. And then going into the final stage, it's like, Johnny, you got 5 seconds to 5th. What are you going to do? So, and lucky for us, obviously we managed to pip the boys in the Evo 9 and move up into 5th by 1 second. So, it was a great way to finish the event.
When we talk about the results, Mark Greenham and Steph, no mistakes, got it to the end, really good job. A bit of panic and a bit of drama with that suspension, but they soldiered on and brought it to the end, grabbed the win easily in the end.
Yeah, we've had a really good event actually. It's been relatively trouble-free up until this morning. So we had a really good run yesterday, even in the wet weather. We're sort of on par with Will White. I think we're equal first for most of the part there until he got a couple of speeding penalties. So we've just been trying to cruise, to be honest, and we hit a pretty rough bump in Pemberton Stage 2, and we smashed the shock, and we've been riding on the bump stop in the front right for the rest of the day, so that made the handling all kinds of exciting. But we've done enough to win, so we're pretty happy about it.
Of course, Will White and Bernie Webb couldn't really jump over those penalties. That just killed them pretty well from day one. Hard to bring back that time.
Yeah, 40 seconds worth of penalties. Obviously, they finished 35 behind.
It was a difficult couple of days. We did a ring on number 4 piston, so we've had to manage an oil burn that we weren't quite expecting, which has made things a little bit difficult for some of the other competitors with a little bit of smoke around. But we got through in the end. We sort of had to short shift in some areas just to try and keep the load off the engine, so it was a bit difficult.
Mark Cates, Declan Stafford in the GDR, beautiful car, well driven, nice, clean, neat, kept everybody on their toes, 3rd outright, really good job.
David Heaton and Steve Glennie, in the Focus RS, beautiful job by them. Steve, obviously as we know, an exceptionally good driver on tarmac himself. Helping refine a few things with David in the Focus, and they did a superb job.
80.
Yourself and John O'Dowd, great job. I'm sure John would have been very pleased with your input. You've been in one of those R5 cars plenty of times, and you must be pretty pleased with the way he handled himself from start to finish. Heller in the Evo, a good job for 6th place. Probably not that happy that he got picked right at the end, but look, a great event for him throughout the whole 2 days. Difficult conditions, as we've said. Big job to bring that thing to 6th. Well, Glenn, the 10th running of the Make Smoking History Targa Southwest. What a great event. It stood the test of time. It's got great support from the locals. Fantastic, the area, the southern region, Southern Forest regions, I should say, Manjimup and Pemberton Town just get behind this event big time, and so do the competitors. It's been a really good 10 years for this event. It deserves to be on the calendar, and the organisers do a fantastic job. I'm sure all the competitors agree with me on that.
Oh, as you say, I think, hats off to Ross Tapper and Dave Smith and their team. The event is put on in the right spirit. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Great selection of roads. Great, as we've talked about for this segment, it's a great diversified list of cars in the event. Overall, it's just a fun weekend and very competitive weekend.
Yeah, I think, Glenn, last but not least, the atmosphere, as you pointed out at the presentation and throughout the whole weekend, fantastic. Not a super event as far as pressure is concerned, but that doesn't mean to say that the guys aren't very competitive. Everybody did a great job. Thanks very much again for your time and your insight from the inside of the car. And we'll see you on the next event.